To call the meeting of the Beaufort County School District's Finance Committee to order. I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would put the flag up, please.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which is found one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to ask the members for approval of the agenda.
I make a motion that we approve tonight's agenda. Okay.
I'll second, but I think we need to remove the minutes. Is that correct?
Yes, please.
Yes.
So I think they need to be approve the agenda with the removal of the committee meeting minutes.
Okay.
Could you restate that, Earl, please?
Okay. I make a motion that we approve that agenda with the removal of the committee minutes of November 18th.
And October 14th.
And October 14th.
Roger. You have a second?
Second.
Okay.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda with the deletion of item D and E. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Robin, do we have any public comments?
No, sir.
Fine. Now move to the audit report. Tanya, are you ready for that?
Sure, I'm ready. Good evening, everyone.
Go ahead.
So this evening, I'm just going to provide basically a summary of audit report information. I will not go into the details of the operational expectation monitoring report that you've been provided. It's a number of pages there, but I do want to touch on briefly the reasoning behind the operational expectation this evening is 6.1 through 6.8. Those all relate to the annual financial report or various reporting we do throughout the year, which I've provided examples of. OEs 9 through 18 provide evidence of debt information, and that report will be given in March of our annual work session on debt. And so it was a nice split between two separate presentations. So half will be reported now and half in March. So I just want to mention Malden Jenkins is the district's external financial auditors, and they have issued an unmodified or clean opinion for the school district for the fiscal year ended June 30th of 2021. And Hope Pendergrass, the managing partner, will be present virtually on Tuesday night for the board meeting in order to give you a thorough presentation of the audit and their procedures and the results of that audit. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail this evening, but I'll hit a few highlights. But one major thing, a major accomplishment for our district and our staff is that we have, the district is in its 21st consecutive year of no audit findings. So we're celebrating that and we're very excited about it. That's pretty unprecedented in government world, and it's something that we strive for every year. So we're very excited about it. So I'm going to refer you, and I've talked to Robin about it, and we're going to move over to the actual audit report. Each year we try to provide a nice cover, and so in that file you'll see we're highlighting the preschool bus, and so we thought it was appropriate to focus on that and provide, it's a beautiful bus, and I wanted to make sure we show children there who are actively working with the teachers and staff that are on the bus. But we're going to flip over to page 24, and they're numbered at the bottom, the numbering sequence at the bottom. And on page 24 of this report is a great snapshot of all of the major governmental funds of our accounting of the school district. And so it provides a summary of revenues and expenses for each fund and the fund balance at the bottom. So one more right there. So in the first column on the left-hand side is the general fund, and you'll see revenues, total revenues of $249.9 million. You move down to total expenditures of $252 million. And then some transfers in and out. So overall, the net addition to fund balance is $5.8 million this year. It moves our fund balance from $44.8 million in the general fund only to $50.6 million. So that's about 19% of our projected next year's expenditures. And so we're a little above the board's policy of 15 to 17%, but we're in a very healthy financial position overall. The main reason for that increase is that our tax revenues came in about $2 million greater than expected. Other state revenues came in about another $1 million greater than expected. And our expenditures, we came under by about $2 million. So the total of that equals the $5.8 million that we increased this year. So just wanted to mention that. Also, you'll see 4 categories of special revenue funds here. All of these funds are considered to be special revenue, so all 4 columns. This year, we had a couple of different instances. One is Pupil Activity Fund. For accounting purposes, there was a new governmental accounting standard, and Hope will go over this on Tuesday night, but it is now considered for our district to be a special revenue fund. So, and in addition to that, we had a number of new funds that were COVID related. That's the ESSER 1, ESSER 2, LEAP funding. And we felt like it was very important that these be separated out and not just lumped together and combined, so that we're able to very clearly distinguish them and see what those funds generate on a separate basis. So this, we were very adamant that those be separated in other columns and not combined under one column here. So as you'll see, Pupil Activity Funds are down a little due to COVID because of the lack of reductions in rentals and fundraising and that sort of thing. But our COVID related funds, you'll see that we spent $9 million, $9.4 million this year. So that's a substantial amount, and we wanted to highlight that with those allocations separately. So that it really concludes my summary, and I'll just move into an opportunity for you to ask questions this evening, and I'll turn it over back to you, Mr. Guy.
You're muted.
Committee members, any comments?
No, sir.
Mr. Campbell?
No, I don't have any. One comment. Tanya, will every board member have a copy of this by the time we have our meeting next week?
Yes, sir. This will be moved into the consent agenda in board docs.
Okay,
It will be moved into the consent agenda section, and then Hope will have a separate presentation, a PowerPoint presentation that will be in the superintendent's report. But this is also available on the website, and I can send a link to every board member if that might help as well. So we
Okay,
have
thank-
already posted it on our website. It was due December 1st.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments from board members?
I did have one that I just thought of that's not necessarily related to this, but Tanya, it's my understanding there's a new reporting requirement by school districts to report I think it's the per pupil expenditure by school or maybe the school expenditures. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe that's the ESEA, and Reggie actually put it on my desk today for review. And it has been around for a couple of years, and it is a per pupil expenditure of all. There are some funding sources, I believe, that are excluded. So after I review that, we submit that to the state. That will be available for viewing.
Okay, thank you. I couldn't recall what it was, and I thought that there was something new where they were having districts report it down by individual school site. And so I was wondering if that would be encompassed in these types of reportings in the future, or if that's going to be a separate reporting that would come to Finance Committee or perhaps to the full board.
We don't typically report it to anyone but the state, but there is also a location summary schedule in the back of our financial report. So I don't have the page number at the moment, but we do report expenditures by school there, not by pupil though. So,
Right.
But if that's something the board would like to see in the future, I can certainly bring that forward.
Yeah, I just thought that would be, I know we don't want to get into the weeds with things, but one of our board goals is making sure that we are expending funds in a equitable manner across all sites. So I just think it's something that maybe we might want to just take a glance at. So I apologize if that was a bit off topic, but wanted to ask about it. Thank you.
Mr. Stribinger or Ms. Boatwright, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I don't.
No, I'm still in the point where I'm learning enough to ask a question. I'll get there someday.
All right. I have one question, Tanya. With a $50 million fund balance, what number in the fund balance do you think would be sufficient to not require us to have a TAN?
Ooh. In a year without COVID, so we borrowed, I don't have the exact number for that. I certainly, I suppose I should have that number in my head. We did borrow $14 million this year. However, we borrowed those funds because of COVID. Our balance is nearing a point where we may be able to do without, but while COVID funds are here, we must expend first and reimburse 3 to 4 months later. So in the fall months, we are rapidly spending those funds and and waiting to get reimbursed later in the year. So that is a great question, and I'm going to have to get back to the board with after I run a few calculations. But certainly, I will provide with COVID and without COVID related funds to get a picture of what that amount should be.
Please do have that. I mean, I know it's going to be a projection, but assume the millage will stay the same. And assume that it's both a COVID, non-COVID, and give a ballpark figure of what number in the fund balance would be sufficient to not require a tax anticipation note.
Yes, sir.
we'd like to give that at the same time that this audit report is given to the public, because I want people not to say, oh my God, look at all that extra money sitting there in the fund balance when we have to borrow money to get us through the lean times before the tax revenue arrives. Any other questions? Mr. Stribinger?
Thanks, Dick. Yeah, I just want to point out that that's not an all or nothing thing. You know, if we could reduce the TAN by 75%, you know, that's a good thing too. So it's not all or nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. Okay. Tanya, do you have anything else?
No, sir, that's all I have.
So the plan is that at the meeting next week, this report will go into, the full report will go into the consent agenda, but we will get a full briefing to the board by the auditors on the results of the audit. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. And I do have some motions prepared for you this evening, if you choose to do that acceptance this evening, yes.
So I'm going to ask the committee members for a motion to provide a recommendation to the full board to accept the results of the annual audit.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we submit. So we're going to accept this, we're not approving.
Recommend approval.
Recommend approval to the full board.
Okay. Dr. Wisniewski, will you second that?
Second, thank you.
Thank you.
Is it okay if I go ahead and just put in the OE 6.1 through 6.8?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, it's a simple motion.
Mhm.
So the motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none.
David's hands up.
David?
This will go to the consent agenda.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
All those in favor of the recommended motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, Tanya, what's next?
Sir, we have OE 18, School Food and Nutrition Services. So this evening we are doing the entire OE 18. The team has been working tirelessly to capture information for the last few months. We have Tim Green and Roberta Edwards and Dan Colott here on Zoom with us this evening. And I'm going to start out by providing some background and financial information, and then I'm going to turn it over to them to talk a little bit about the operational highlights of the year. So in summary, just a little background on the food service operation. This is a heavily regulated operation. USDA, the Department of Agriculture, and the South Carolina Department of Education Nutrition Office monitor this, have a tremendous amount of regulations, but also monitor on a very regular basis the operation, and their expectations are that we do that as well, which we do. The last 2 years have been unlike any year that I've ever seen, and I think this team's ever seen, and that we've had free meals for all students for the entire school year. And those do end on June 30th, 2022. I've not heard of any extensions beyond that date as of this time. So the reimbursements that we're receiving in the form of USDA revenues are significantly higher per meal than we normally expect. And as a result of that, the financials reflect that increase. So if I may, Robin, there's a flipping, if you wouldn't mind, flipping over to the revenues section. I think I have it on, excuse me just a minute. Okay, dimensions. I'm sorry, I should have been more prepared on this one. Okay, let's go to page, the top is evidence and compliance 18.8. And this will reflect that the school district is serving about 2.8 million meals per year in the top table. And then down toward the end of the page, the enterprise fund, which is a for-profit fund, so food and nutrition services is an enterprise fund, and it is the only enterprise or for-profit fund of the school district. So there is an expectation that there is a profit annually and that the fund is self-sustaining. So the fund balance has accumulated to an all-time high of a $5.2 million balance as of the end of June 30th, 2021. This is up about $2 million from the previous year. Our annual revenues, primarily from USDA, are about $11 million this year. So it's a substantial operation with a lot of federal revenue. So the contracted rate that we're receiving is $4.25 per meal. And the rate that we pay contractually to Sodexo, our food service partners, is $3.30. So the revenues coming in at a much higher rate. The payments going to Sodexo are about $1 less per meal. So that reflects about a $2.3 million profit in the food service operation. So, and the next page reflects the expenses, but also the capital, the requirements of the fund balance. USDA and the state nutrition office require the district to spend down the balances. They are not allowed to have an excess operating balance. And so since those $2 million are then reinvested, any profits are reinvested back into the program each year through a program of repurposing, replenishing or replacing equipment in our kitchens or cafeterias. It could also pay for equipment or cafeteria tables, vehicles for the transportation of food and workers across the county. And so we have a plan to reinvest those dollars back into walk-in coolers, freezers, refrigerators, dishwashers, and ovens throughout the district. The plan provides, if you move forward about 3 pages, we'll see a spending plan with a listing of the dollars, the various budget items that we plan to, or have already begun to, in some cases, expend in order to bring that balance down to the same level as the prior year as required by the State Department of Education. So you'll see there are some sign-on bonuses for recruiting and retention, referral bonuses for existing employees to receive some compensation if they refer someone that successfully is hired and stays with the food service operation for a period of time. And we're replacing some outdated equipment in the kitchens, packaging supplies, smallwares, tables, and some vehicles that are in need of replacement that would have otherwise have been paid for in our 8% capital budget. So we're able to save those save the funds in 8% and utilize the funds here in our food service program. So just one last thing, we do have annual, the audit, the annual financial audit that you just saw is does audit the food service operations, since it is one of our major funds. And so there were, of course, no findings in that, as well as other district operations. We do have annual administrative reviews from the food service office. And in the report, the OE monitoring report, I did indicate that we did have a report, a review in July of 2020, and a report that came out about 6 months later. So I assume the pandemic delayed the reporting. There were some relatively minor deficiencies in that. They were on the number of meals that were documented. Some of them were not, at a few schools, were not documented correctly. Some meals were overclaimed. So we have put some things in place. Mr. Colott is in charge of overseeing that operation, and he is spread very thin throughout the district in our many schools. So we've added additional staff member earlier in the year to the food service for the main purpose of monitoring meals. So we have to go on site and physically look at the plates and make sure that they're USDA compliant and that meals are documented correctly as they're distributed to students. So we have put something in place, a process in place to correct that deficiency, and I think that it's made a significant improvement this year. So we are up for another program administrative review in January of 2022. So we expect that we'll see some progress or improvement at that time. So I always want to tell the good with the bad, so that you know all the details. And so we're not perfect, but we are striving for perfection. That's for sure. So before I turn it over to Tim and Roberta for operational highlights, I don't know if you want to take an opportunity here for any financial related questions.
We have some questions. Dr. Wisniewski, you were first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had one question, and it was in regard to that food service fund balance. I think that listing of things that it's being spent down for or with are pretty complete. I just had a question in regard to, I know when we've been doing some different visits of schools, particularly those that have a strain on their common spaces, one of the questions has been, can those cafeteria areas be expanded with an outdoor covered area to eat, was at one school I recall. So I'm wondering, could that spending plan include something like that? I know it has cafeteria tables, but what about expansions of those cafeteria spaces?
Yes, it can be used for outdoor dining areas. And I have been working with Freddie Lawton and the facilities team to identify areas where the need is the greatest in that respect. Now, we have to work with we'll work with the principal, and I have received a couple of requests for just a few picnic tables and umbrellas. So some requests come, on a small scale. Others are looking for shade structures that maybe have permanent foundation work that may need to be required. So we certainly do. I'm working with Freddie Lawton and Robert Auding to identify which spaces are where the need is. And then I have the food service fund. We have the budget to be able to help with those resources.
Thank you. That's good to know. I appreciate that, because I know that that's a concern in some of those very high capacity schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Campbell, you're next.
Yes, I just want to, we'll let 2.2 million take care of every school. for as far as equipment and issues that,
Well, we have a 5-year plan,
Mhm.
and we're based on the life cycle of certain equipment, and that's at the recommendation. Our food service folks team meet with our maintenance team and go through the schools to identify which schools have work orders that are showing where certain equipment items are showing age and have regular repairs that are needed. So we have life cycle replacements over a 5-year period, and we're actually fast tracking that cycle to do 3 years this year since we have the funding. So we're going to, I can't say that it touches every school for the equipment purpose, but certainly we have the opportunity to, if not this year, within the next 2 years, absolutely touch every school. In addition to that, the small wares replacement, we are providing those spoons and spatulas and pans and pots and pans and that sort of thing, an allocation to every single school. So our intent is to touch as many schools as possible.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Stribinger, you're next.
Thank you, Dick. Have the superintendent's interpretations already been approved?
Yes, sir.
Oh, they have been?
All of the areas that report to me, every interpretation has been approved. Yes, sir.
Okay. Because I'm not going to make a case, but 1810, I think, misses the boat completely. But if it's already been approved, then that's water under the bridge. Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir.
I have a question. So why do we have to keep approximately $2 million fund balance in this area? What brought us to that number?
The spending plan, there is a calculation that's performed to take the cash on hand. Let's see. There is a calculation on, I don't have my pages numbered here, but takes the cash on hand and takes the yearly expenditure divided by 10 months of the year, and you must maintain 3 months of operations. You cannot maintain more than 3 months of operations in your fund balance.
Okay.
So this amount, this $2 million is what exceeds that 3 months of operations in the fund balance.
Okay. Okay, because this is a separate account. This is not, you pay a contractor. So you have, it's not a payroll issue, it's a contract obligation. Is that correct?
That's correct. So the primary spending, so it is a separate bank account, and the treasurer has a separate account as well. So the combination of the two create the fund balance, or the cash, or the equity in cash as a combination. The primary expenditure, the largest expenditure, is that of our payment to Sodexo for their service. We do have approximately 7 employees left on Beaufort County School District payroll, and we must have at least 1 person in the food service operation that is a district employee that oversees and monitors the operations of, and that is Mr. Kolak. We now, at this point, we have 2 in that office, one that is the new employee that I mentioned earlier. So, and others have been grandfathered in and been with the district for many years. So the other expenses are those that you see here: supplies, materials, and Sodexo is responsible for some of the expenditures as well. And so there's a contractual obligation of both parties for certain expenditures that is unique to most other contracts and service contracts in the district.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Please proceed with your report.
Okay. Mr. Green, I'm going to turn it over to you to start some conversation about operational highlights.
Well, thank y'all for the opportunity. And I want to introduce Roberta Edwards. She is the Director of Operations here, and I have been here since June. I am new to the operation. I'm not new to Beaufort. My family is from here, so I'm still learning a lot of the ropes and learning this part of the program. I've been to a lot of the schools, so operational wise, I will let Roberta tell you about the food service program.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Roberta Edwards. As Tim said, for last year, our program, Beaufort County School District Food Service Program, we served about 2.8 million meals through different avenues. We partnered with transportation to be able to distribute meals to the students during the virtual time, and even when the district wasn't at a place where we could allow the kids to come back in face to face. We also partnered with instructional services for parents that had to work and their kids were in different community programs, but they were still being able to do virtual learning. We provided meals for them. And then we also worked with Well Branch Group to provide meals over there to those students, and St. Helena local churches we've worked with, and then the Boys and Girls Club YMCAs throughout Beaufort County. All of us partnered together to be able to make sure that those meals were getting out to students, both breakfast and lunches. And then we also have worked with vocational rehab programs. We're doing that this year, working with them to help get some of the students, or not students, I'm sorry, some of the adults that's in that program to give them an opportunity to have a job and work. And we've worked with them in the past, and we just started back working with them. And we have about 6 schools that we're having those vocational employees working at, to help out in capacities where it's feasible for them to be able to work and make their own money.
This is kind of.
You're on mute. You're on mute.
Okay, you need to.
I need to mute.
Pull yours down.
This is a new thing that we just started with the special needs. They've done this in the past. My cousin was part of that program, and it's kind of dear to my heart to have some of those community members be part of our school community. So some of the things that we're doing as well is recruiting has been, as a really difficult situation with every restaurant, food service, and just about every business. So, some of the things that we've done is Sodexo has a recruiting referral program. We've also been able to do some referral bonuses this year to try to get some people on board as well. We've seen a slight uptick in the traffic that we've had over the last 2 weeks. So that's been a positive effect with the recruiting bonuses. The way we're getting there is we're getting out through social media, Facebook, Instagram, yard signs that are being placed up around the schools. This is kind of a boutique type job where it's Monday through Friday, no nights, no weekends. So it's a little different culture of trying to hire people from the restaurants, the Chick-fil-A's and the fast food restaurants, or even the restaurants, because those are nights, weekends, and holidays. So we're not getting the same type of restaurant worker. So it's a little bit different when people say, well, why don't you just go to the restaurants? Those type of people don't work these type of jobs. These are kind of a specialty type job. And then one of the other things I want to kind of close on a highlight, we have just partnered with the Chamber of Commerce as well as the Beaufort County School District on some of their vocational jobs. So we're the first one that signed up for the Youth Apprentice program, which will be taking several of our students from the culinary program, and it will become an apprenticeship and a mentorship which they will actually get a certification from. They will work with us, and then in the summertime, we're partnering with the healthcare system as well as Paris Island to give them some real world experience before they get out into college or decide what they're really going to do. So that we just did that this week, and this is kind of a nice thing that we were presented with. So.
All right, I believe that concludes our report, and Mr. Geyer, I'm going to turn that back over to you.
Mr. Stribinger, I see your hand is up.
Thank you. I hope this isn't off topic, but is there any initiative to buy local produce? And what made me think of this is the Gullah Farmers Co-op has just opened a wholesale thing on St. Helena. And I thought, boy, it'd be great if they could get those fresh veggies down to St. Helena, but I wasn't sure if that could be done.
Okay, so that is a great question. And Tanya and I were actually at the ribbon cutting yesterday. And Roberta and Larry Wilson, who is my boss, and you guys know Larry. This has been a project that they have been trying to get in the works for the last 10 years. With them, and Sodexo has worked with Limehouse Produce out of Charleston because there's so many working parts to getting this to happen because of insurance, the quality of the product, what's available during this time, and a way to distribute it to all the schools. Because when we buy produce, we buy a lot of produce, and so we ought to be able to keep the farmers pretty busy. Planning stuff. So the way we've got it worked out right now is they are going to go through Limehouse Produce. We are going to be able to place an order with them on a weekly basis based on what's available. At that time, we will get a report the week before, says, broccoli's coming on board or carrots or whatever it is. I know that they have purchased a chopping machine that will allow them to offer more products for what we're doing and packaging. And so we will be starting that very soon.
Thank you. Thank you. That brings a big smile to me. Thanks.
Dr. Wisniewski.
That's really great. Thank you for sharing that. And David, that was a good question. I knew nothing about it, but that's exciting to hear that things like that are going on and the districts, making those collaborative partnerships. I was just going to, while we had you guys on the line, thank you very much for all of the work that you all have done throughout COVID, because I know that once it hit, getting those meals out to kids wherever they were was so important. And I just wanted to give kudos to y'all's team because I'm very thankful for that.
Thank you.
Campbell, do you have anything?
No, I don't. Mr. Smith got his hand up.
Okay, who does? Ingrid?
Mr. Smith.
Mr. Smith? Okay, Mr. Smith, go ahead.
I was just going to agree with Dr. Wisniewski. I would definitely like to give a thanks to you all for what you've done during COVID, and as well as to say in terms of the program that Mr. Scrivener just mentioned, as well as Dr. Wisniewski, I would say I had no knowledge of it, and I was kind of wondering, was that something that will be coming before the board to inform the community, or how that initiative? What was the process of doing that?
The process of was it the Gullah Farmers?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Okay, that was a new development as far as the ribbon cutting ceremony occurred yesterday. We just recently found out about it. So my plan was to bring, actually I talked to Mr. Jackie Frazier yesterday at the ribbon cutting and asked him if he would be willing to come present to the board at some point once we got the program up and running. So I think he's done that years ago in the past. And he said he would be thrilled to come back and he would love to. So we want to make sure we get the program up and running, get some pictures of food and kids eating collard greens or whatever, or other vegetables and fresh fruits that we have available, and make sure that we give an update to the board. I think that would be something that we had already planned to do.
All right, but my question was, what was the process in getting that going? How did that get started?
Are you talking about the co-op or our partnership?
The partnership with the co-op, the whole reference to MOU. How is that being done?
Well, there's no MOU or MOA in place. It would be a food purchase that we would go through procurement to procure any food for the district. But the co-ops have been working on developing their organization for over 10 years. And Larry Wilson, being in the district for some time, has been working with members of the co-op to help them through the federal and state and local regulations that they have been. So he's been actively working with them in partnership to develop their co-op and as an initiative for the district to be able to partner with. So it's just an opportunity for us to purchase food from their co-op and keep our purchases of fresh fruits and vegetables on a local platform.
Thank you.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
also, while we have the Sodexo staff, I just wanted to put it out there. I know we're talking about finances, but I just wanted to put out there we're still getting just a couple of complaints in reference to the packaging of the lunches. I just wanted to kind of put that out there and figure out do we know if, when and how can we get a handle on that?
Go ahead, Roberta.
Wait, Tanya, you want me to answer that one?
Yes, ma'am, if you would like
Okay.
to.
All right, Mr. Smith, what we have done is worked with the principals to decide which avenue and which way would be best for us to provide the meals for the kids coming through the lines, with including social distancing for the kids. So the styrofoam cover trays, we came up with that idea for a couple of reasons. One is because a lot of the kids were taking the meals back to the classroom, and we didn't want someone to have a container that's open where someone can sneeze on it and it be an issue. So that's why we came up with the cover trays for them. And then the clamshells that we are using as far as for the sandwich, the salads, we've been using those at the schools before COVID. It gives the students the opportunity to actually see the food that they're actually going to get and eat. And for the past couple of weeks, I've been working and helping out at Bluffton Middle School, and the kids are coming through the line and everything, but the principals still don't want the lines to be back up so kids won't be standing close by each other for long periods of time. So we worked with each of the principals when COVID first came out last year and the district opened back up in October. We had a meeting with each principal to come up with an avenue or a way to serve the meals that would meet their needs and also try to keep the food as hot as we possibly can.
Thank you. And I was, I guess when I say packaging, I was basically saying that also that students were complaining that the food was not tasty, and it not only did not look good, it didn't taste good, and the variety of what you could get had cut down tremendously, and that basically was either they get what was in one line or not, and that was just a lot of people questioning it out, and I want to know what brought that on versus the limited two.
Well, I'll answer that, William. So part of the issue that we have is we're 65 employees down. We were at one point about 80 something employees down, dividing that between the schools. Service and the service model that we're doing, the packaging part of what we're doing is actually more, time strain on our people. So we've had to cut down we've had to cut down the menu to be able to produce the food, to actually get it onto the onto the trays and actually push them to the classrooms for service. So the variety and the choices, we went with more, I will call them familiar foods that the kids tend to like to eat. Because when you're doing that and you're saying you're going to serve pizza on Friday with a salad, you know, that's more conducive than meatloaf and mashed potatoes. You're going to have more of kids eat that kind of food. So we've had to limit the type of food based on the service style that we're doing, and with the limited amount of people that we're doing serving, it's made it quite a challenge. And I have to commend all of our team members, because we have schools that normally would have 5 people, and we've got 2 that are, you know, being rock stars trying to knock this out. And I think everybody in this office, including myself, I ran Pritchardville for a month, and we still have Roberta and Pat and a couple of other people in these schools really trying to make sure that these kids are getting a meal, because that really is our mission at this point, is to make sure that the kids get a meal. I'm not to say that there's not going to be some complaints. I have 2 daughters. One likes pizza, one likes salad. So, you know, it may not be their favorite meal of the day, but what we are serving is based on the USDA requirements, as well as the nutritional information and the calorie counts that we are given to feed the students.
Okay, I've been to the student advisory committee from each of the high schools, all 5 of the high schools, and I'll have the last high school at Well Branch tomorrow. And at every one of those advisory committees, and basically these are student leaders of all the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade that come in and speak to Dr. Rodriguez. And Dr. Rodriguez asks them what's going well, what's not going so well. And every one of them, they bring up the issue that Mr. Smith just mentioned. And Dr. Rodriguez very succinctly explains to them what challenges you all are facing, and tells them, have you been to a restaurant lately that had poor service or not have everything on the menu and so on? They all agree. And by the end of that little discussion, they understand what's happening in not only in our district, but in our county and our nation, because of the COVID impact and the supply chain problems and so on. So we know that you're doing the best you can. We're making sure that the students know that as well. And we really appreciate all that you do. And we keep telling them it's going to get better. And you know, we'll get over this. Any other questions?
The Boatwright has a hands up.
Yes, Boatwright, please.
Well, I was going to say exactly what you said, Colonel Geyer, and then I thought I wanted to add that the students that we talk to, you know, that I've talked to, they so appreciate what the staff's doing. They get it. A lot of them work in food and beverage themselves, and one of them at Hilton Head, they wanted to have a little parade for their food staff. So the students are very appreciative, and that's saying something for teenagers. So I wanted to just add that little bit in.
Thank you. Anything else you want to add, Tanya?
Yes, sir. I think we've concluded our presentation.
Any other comments?
Oh, sure.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to recommend approval of the OE 18 Food and Nutrition Services report to the board?
Yes, I make a motion that that will go into consent agenda, right?
Yes,
Yes,
it will.
sir.
Okay, all right. Yes, I'll make a motion that we do that.
Okay. Do we have a second? It's been moved and seconded to recommend approval of OE 18 Food and Nutrition Services to the full board. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. Can you show that agenda again, please, Robin?
Yeah, I have to take Trisha's name off of that because she is not here on this meeting. Hold on. Put this down.
Okay, future topics. Committee members, Mr. Campbell,
Nope, I don't have anything at this time.
okay. Dr. Wisniewski?
I was just going to reiterate that request to see whenever Tanya has it available. Whenever that's available on the site specific expenditures.
Great. I'd also like to mention that based on our meeting yesterday, we're going to be changing committees probably at the first of the year, which is our normal procedure. I would like to take a shot at distilling the OEs that the Finance Committee is responsible for per our discussion yesterday, and send that out to committee members before the first of the year for any comments, additions, subtractions, deletions, whatever, so that when the next committee meets, to kind of give them a head start on looking at those OEs. Is that all right with the committee members?
That's fine.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, especially because David had that question about, what was it, 1810 or something today, and felt that it missed the mark. So I think that's a good idea.
Okay. Then we'll do that. Anything else for the good of the order?
Sure.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, everybody.